GS is my husband. I run his tree. You match as first cousins. How do you know him? And I wrote back. I said, you know what? Gloves are off. I'm just writing back. I'm adopted. Blah blah blah. I gave him all the information, and she writes back immediately. She goes, I know who you are. She goes, we know who you are.
Hi, Louise.
Hey, Sarah.
Well, here we are. We are really closing in on the end of this.
I
The
know.
Adoption Paradox, Putting Adoption in Perspective by Jean Kelly Widner. We are on chapter 23, Foster Parents.
Foster parents, you brought up something. We're closing in on the end of this, and we have our new book.
Yes.
So, Rebecca Wellington and Who is a Worthy Mother.
Yes, that's our next book. So
Mm-hmm.
you should order that. That's going to be soon. Rebecca Wellington, Who is a Worthy Mother. We've known Becca for
Yeah.
a couple of years now. She was on the podcast. We've really been wanting to read the book, so this is exciting.
Yeah. And she
Um,
sponsors our events.
she does. Yes.
So
Yes.
we're going to put
Without
her.
her,
Yeah,
yeah.
we wouldn't
So,
have them. We'll put that in the show notes. But so back to the book. Here's the opening quote we always do. Children that have been abused do not have behavioral problems that need to be addressed. They have extreme survival skills that need to be understood.
hmm
Paula Goodwin. What a great quote that is.
yeah. Well, so
Boy.
this is all about foster parents. I highlighted a couple things early here. The foster care system can help build families, but as mentioned in chapter 10, that is not its primary purpose.
Oh,
The central focus of all out of home care is to provide for children or youth during a time of crisis for a family with the reunification as the goal whenever possible. What was interesting is that
yeah.
down later in the chapter, there was a foster parent talking about that 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 she felt like a lot of this is just numbers for
Yeah.
the agencies, right? So that reunification ticked off numbers and did all that. So even if it wasn't in the best interest of the children, often it was, just to
Yeah.
tick off the numbers. And then all the stuff about private
That's
um
why the
private
privatization.
the
It's like
just like
prisons.
private prisons, right?
Yeah.
That needs to be looked at and
It becomes
so
this business and the kids are it's just like
mhm.
adoption in the way the kids are the last to have the things they need. There's some wonderful foster parents in here. One thing she says I like when she puts in quotes, when looking at the marketplace that exists within private infant adoption, this is the other way to bypass that system. So
Uh-huh.
back to adoption, we do know that people also use this to kind of
Yes.
pick the kids they want.
So it does, she breaks it down into three different groups: kinship
Mm-hmm.
placements, temporary foster care providers, and those families who are actively seeking a foster to adopt situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Like when there was one couple that said, well, we realized the price tag of an infant
Yep.
adoption was like 50 to 60,000. We didn't have that, so we went for the foster
Yeah.
route. Um,
They ended up being pretty decent, I thought, right? Like we had somebody write us. Do you remember that?
mhm.
They were going to adopt a child. They ended up going through the foster system, and now they work with reunification. I
Right,
thought,
because she said after
mm-hmm.
listening to the podcast,
Yeah,
they couldn't in good conscience adopt an infant, so they decided to
help
foster with that has a 90% reunification rate. So
help children.
help the children. There was a whole list of
Mhm.
points of
Oh,
view,
right.
like foster to adopt interviewed talked about inconsistencies, right? All of
Mm-hmm.
them cite how overworked and underprepared their caseworkers are.
Yep.
None of the parents felt they received enough training.
That came up time and time again. Not enough
Time and
training.
again through this. All of
Mm-hmm.
them searched for information independently and took other courses, and most also shared endless frustrations about the negative biases they received towards them.
Yeah,
That they got foster parents are looked at
really
poorly, and
badly.
you're in it for the money, or you just want to get a kid, or whatever it is.
You're kind of like this truck stop or something. They're treated really badly. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was surprised by how badly they were treated through it. Would you go in? A lot of people do go in. It's their dream to help children, and they go in with well, one lady didn't even last a week in the courses
Right.
because it was so negative, and that's not what we want, right? Kids need help.
These stories, w-
Oof,
they're very dense and very
very heavy.
very heavy. So,
Hmm.
um, but one thing to be clear of it that shows this was from 2013, right? So that's a
Yeah,
long time ago.
it is.
19 states do not have any
I know.
minimum required hours for training. 13 states only required 6 to 12 training hours.
I
7 states,
know.
13 to 21, 8 states, 22 to 30.
I was shocked by
So
that.
then just take these strange kids into your home, not strange kids, but kids who are strangers. You are strangers to them. Some don't even require any training. They just
Any
drop
training,
them off into, this is where these horror stories come
of
from.
course. We've had a couple of people on actually, Michaela, some other people that have gone through horrible situations
Mm-hmm.
like this. I was happy
Yeah.
to hear that Texas had 50 hours. Shout out to Texas. I mean, it.
Very few things you can shout out to Texas for.
I wanted to give them a
This is
shout
one
out.
of them.
I was like, well, they do have the highest. Yeah, then there was one guy who really, well, I mean, she does get into different kinds. So then you have this guy, Tom, actually worked. He was somebody she interviewed. He also worked in the training,
Mm-hmm.
worked in the, what's it called? Uh, policy making in his home
Yeah.
state, which was so interesting because he got to see it on both sides, being a foster parent and then how messed up the system was. Very few people get that overview. And yeah, this is where he gets into
Well,
all the mental health. They felt very ill prepared. He was ill prepared, which is fascinating to me.
right.
Yeah.
Well, because was it them or another couple that they had children that had fetal alcohol,
Yeah.
which
I
is
think it
such
was
a,
in
and a lot of most of
yeah.
these children need care. I
Yes.
still, we don't need to change their names, and because they did talk about one, that all these kids, all these siblings, and then some of the
Yeah.
siblings got separated,
Uh,
adopted out, their names were changed, and they
yeah.
couldn't find them. They got lost in the system,
They
and
got
that is.
lost.
And then there was another thing I wrote down that I don't know why this is a triggering word for me, but and I'm going to try to explain it, but there were a couple of the foster parents kept referring to them as kiddos, and that feels to me so um
Yeah. Yeah.
it I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it it bugged it. I
They
don't
were,
like little kiddos, like
yeah.
even if your heart's in the right place and you're doing a good thing, that is still sort of objectifting them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
Yeah.
felt
No.
objectifying. That's what I've
Yeah.
been trying to find. So,
Yeah.
um, but I do wanted to talk about these because here we are again into profit, right?
It's a total profit system
Mm-hmm.
again.
That they in Mentor, which is
Oh, yes.
this 20, I think it's 28 states have this, but
Yeah, which is
whatever
a
it is.
lot. That's a lot of
Um,
states.
Mentor's profit margins vary state by state. In Ohio, according to a 2012 spreadsheet, again, this is
Right. A little
14 some
dated.
odd years ago, BuzzFeed News, its profit margin as measured by the common EBITDA, sorry, I don't know that
Me neither.
method, has been as high as 44%. In Alabama, it indicates that the margin has hit 31%. That would mean that only 69 cents of every dollar that the state government paid to Mentor was spent on caring for the child
Mm-hmm. That's
for
right.
profit.
Yep. A little over 10% of its overall profit margin. Well, then they get into even the costs of, like, if you're giving let's say $2,000 a month per child, whatever, the foster family is getting $600 of that. The rest is going to big business.
Hmm.
I mean, when you even look at the dollars, 600 is not enough to really even care for a child properly. I mean,
I mean,
that's
definitely not, especially now. Of course,
right.
again, this was however many years ago,
Yeah.
but now, are you kidding? You could
No,
600 a week would be more like what,
I
I don't
know
know.
it's crazy. It's great. It's all about profit. Well, anytime you get into the privatization, that's what happened with the prison system. As soon as
Hmm.
you outsource it, it was already not a great system, but they sold it on this will help and we'll have this and voters vote for it because, most people don't know.
I know.
I didn't know a lot of this until we did this. I mean,
Well, so yeah, this just she goes deep into the different stories, and those
mhm.
are the ones I highly recommend reading the book. They're really intense and in depth about experiences, and
Yeah,
um,
this is a great book.
it's
It's
such
really
a
a
good
great book.
book. Such a good book. Yeah, she closes out the one of the It was sad though. There was a couple that adopted, and a year
Yeah.
after these interviews, the man died,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
that just
I
another
know.
loss for the kids, and
Another
then
loss.
the his wife having, being alone, and that was poignant. And then it closed out with one foster parent saying, I think that for every individual, it's going to be different. I honestly don't know how we survived as long as we did, but I would go back and walk through it again, which shows
Yeah,
you,
I like that.
that it's rewarding and that
Yeah.
there are people in it for the right reasons. And
It's people who love children and care and want to help them and love them. There's people that stayed in touch with the reunification with the parents,
mhm.
became part of their larger family. That's the hope, right?
I like how Jean says, misunderstood by most of society. They want people to know how sincerely and completely dedicated they are to the well being of their children, no matter how
Mm.
long they are with them. The truth is, everyone within the adoption constellation often feels misunderstood by society around them. So,
Yeah, that's the truth.
mhm.
She
We never
sums it up.
knew till we started this podcast. Well, next week, reunions, hopes for healing and identity.
And soon Jean herself
Yes, and
for
Jean
the
will be our
finale.
season finale, the
Yeah,
writer of the book. Yeah.
coming
So we'll
soon.
hear from her about her book and her story. So I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to that.
me too. All right. See you in a minute.
I'll see you in a minute for Elle.
Yeah.
Hello. Today we have someone coming to us from Oceanside, Long Island. Welcome, Ellen. Happy to have you.
Happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
Welcome.
It's nice to meet you
Yeah.
both.
It's so nice to meet you. You're just a breath of fresh air. We've been chatting before this, but
Yes, thank you.
tell
Likewise.
us your story.
Okay, I will. I wanted to preface a little bit first before I started, with a couple of things that, you know, really hit home for me with your podcast. You had a fellow on named Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
I think, was it Jeff? Was
Yeah,
it
Hmm.
last
Jeff.
week? And he's and every time I listen to this podcast, I always find like one little thing from every story, like, like mine, different from, I always find like one little thing that really hits home for me, or like, oh my God, yes, and then Jeff was saying something about imposter syndrome. And it really like resonated with me, about how, as adoptees, we have, you don't have to be adopted to have imposter syndrome, so let me say that. But that really hit home for me, like when he was saying all of that. So I just wanted to say that for Jeff. Thank you. And before I start, there was also a fellow you had on, I want to say maybe 6 months ago, named Dave
Mm.
from, I feel like it
Dave
was Boston.
Dave
Dave.
Veroni.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So his story, he had parents who were on Long Island. Remember, the dad was the football player and he was
Yes.
in the army, and then the
Yes.
mom was a professor. Do you remember this whole
Yes.
story?
Uh-huh. We know him well.
Oh, you know him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's telling this story, and as he's telling this story and he's saying these dates and these names and these towns, that's where I live. So Dave's going to have to hit me up, because the story that I'm going to tell you takes place at the exact same time as when his parents had him, as when my biological parents have me.
Huh.
So I actually got a little bit stalky, and I went back, and I think that there's a very real possibility that my biological parents, if I have the right parents of his, might have known his. So when I did the Google mapping on it, they're literally, if it's the same, Dave's going to have to tell me off camera because I don't want to blow anybody up. But the
And
house, the house that my biological mother grew up in, when I Google mapped it to where I think his family grew up, because I have access to the old, it's zero point 0.3 miles
wow.
from Google
I'm
Maps, which
sure
is
they knew
literally
each
down the
other.
block. So there's a very real possibility that my parents knew his parents, which is weird, or they went to high school together, because it's
Yeah.
all in the same time frame.
All right.
So,
Well, can't wait to hear. Like
okay,
where, yeah.
okay. All right. So, I was born in 1969 in May, in New York City, in St. Vincent's. And I was adopted at like 2.5, 3 months old. I don't know where I was for those 2 months. I have no idea. Probably in foster care,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I was adopted by my parents, Mary and Joe, and they had already adopted my older brother. He was 3. He was adopted as well. He was adopted at 10 months. And I came home and I don't remember ever hearing a story about like, oh, your mother loved you so much, she gave you up, those stories. I never heard anything like that. The only thing that I heard was, oh, we took your brother to the either the hospital or the orphan or whatever, and he picked you out. So, you know, I don't know. I asked my brother about that recently. He goes, I don't remember that. Anyway, but one of my friends, one of my oldest friends, remembers that story. She goes, oh, I remember the story. Your brother picked you out of a lineup of babies, and he said, I want
Oh,
that one. So my parents were older. They were quite a bit older. My mother was 40
Mm.
when I came along, 37 with my brother, and my father was younger. He was 36 at the time. And back then,
Go, mom.
right? And back then, right? And back then, I mean, she didn't get married till she was 29. And back then in the 50s and 60s, like you were an old maid if you didn't, were married,
mm,
whatever. And, she got married to my father, and, suffice to say, he was not a good person. My adoptive father was really not a good person. He was violent. He was very abusive, much more so to my brother. Not as much to me. I mean, enough to me, but he was very, very, he had a very short fuse. He was a big guy, very, very scary. And, he, not a great person.
So
So,
can I just ask
yeah,
really quick? So were did they adopt because of fertility issues? So do you
yeah.
think his rage had something to do with that, and he took it
You know
out
what?
on his,
Um,
particularly his
with,
son, not being a mirror and an image?
it's funny you should say that. Um, he had, I think, just rage in general, and his family, and again, these things are like cyclical. His
right.
father was violent, like he was violent towards my brother, like everything pissed him off. Like he was just like walking on eggshells. And it's funny you should say that, because one of the other things that I do remember my mother saying to me is that when they adopted my brother, which this makes me insane, they tried to match. They tried to get a baby that
Ugh,
looked like them. She's like, oh, they tried to get a baby that, would look like me and your father, which is like, if they're blank slates, why do you need to match? You know what I mean?
Right.
So my brother came along, and he actually did look like them. He had green, like the hazel eyes and the brown hair. And then I came along, and I had blonde hair, like really blonde hair. And I didn't look, I'm tall. I didn't look like any of them. I didn't act like any of them. They were just, they were just a confusing bunch. Like I could not stand my father's side of the family. They were all like kind of not nice people either. And again, that's probably by way of their upbringing.
yeah,
Was
right.
he also abusive to your mom?
I was
You know what?
wondering.
Yeah, he was um verbally
Mm.
verbally abusive to my mom. I did see him at one point like shove her. I did see him do that. And and as my brother and I have gotten older, like we're not super close. We're very different people, you know, in everything. But as we've gotten older, we've become closer. And he has been telling me things from our past that I might not remember. And he said, "Don't you remember the time that, Dad was beating me so bad with a
Oh,
belt that Mom, yeah, I know, that Mom had to pull him off and say, you're gonna kill him, you're gonna kill him."
God.
So I said, no, I don't remember that. But so there's a reason I'm telling you all this. So, we had this atmosphere of like, A, I didn't feel like I fit in here. B, I was terrified, and C, like I would look around and I go, these people aren't like me. They don't look like me. They don't like any of the things that I like. always nervous in their presence. I just knew I didn't fit there. So, P.S., going on through life, we lived in this really nice neighborhood called Limbrook, and which is like a town over. And we grew up there. Everybody, we very nice neighbors, all of the things. And my father, when I was about 10 or 11, and I'm telling you this for a reason, he just took off. He just left. Him and my mother had been fighting and this, that, and the other thing. He left. He took off, left a note, and he said, I'm going to find myself or something of this nature. So he just left, right? We didn't know where he went. And finally, after a couple of days, my mom located him. He was at his sister's house. And from there, he didn't want to talk. He didn't want to do anything. He left and he went to Florida, right? Went to Florida. So we didn't see him.
What did he
And
do for a living when you
I
were
know,
growing
I
up?
just do that.
here's the thing. This is where my parents met. He worked for an airline, like one of the old airlines back in the day. And my mother had worked there too. And this is where they met. And he was not the kind of person like could hold a job for. It's funny you should say that. He was not good at holding a job because his lovely personality kind of spilled over into the workplace too. So he wasn't like a popular guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't like a really like, hey, let's hire him. So he went to Florida. So my mother was like, all right, she didn't work. She was, women of that age, of that time, they, whatever,
Yeah.
left us with, just took off. She went through the courts. He wanted a divorce, didn't say anything. So we were forced to go down and visit with him through the courts. They made us go down and visit. Neither my brother and I were like into it. We went down there, and it turns out he was living with a woman named Jean.
I was
And
assuming he left with a woman. I don't know
oh
why,
yes,
but come on.
yes. So Jean had been a former coworker of both of my parents,
Mm.
and she had 4 children of her own, younger than me, and I was 11, and she took off with my father, and they went down to Florida, and that was it. Never, she left her kids, he left, and yeah, this is the reason I'm telling you this. So he went down, they went down to Florida. We had to visit them. The court ordered us to visit them. We had no choice. And we went down, and it was just weird, as you can imagine, and awkward and strange. And then after that, I never, ever saw him again. Like he would try periodically to reach out and, and I just defied all the court orders. Like my mother would say, oh, you have to go and visit. And I go, I'm not going. I don't like him. He's mean, and I was actually happy that he left. I was glad, because he was not a great person and all of these things. So by the time I was like 15 or 16, I never saw or heard from him again. Like he was just gone. Right. So my mother, of course, had to get a job. We had to sell our house. They got divorced. Then we moved to Oceanside, which is where Oceanside comes in. So we moved to Oceanside, and I always thought I was the way I was, like how as adoptees we're very we can read the room, like we kind of know like that guy's weird, or like I don't like you, or you just can read the room, you can feel. I always thought it was because my parents were divorced and I came from this dysfunctional background. And like I always thought all of my things that were my things were because of that. And then when I started listening to like, the podcasts and things and, finding like the coming out of fog and all of that, I go, oh, hold on. I have you. Why are you not here? Hold on. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Was my computer. So, I always thought that all of the things that, that adoptees feel, like, I don't feel like I belong here. Like, I just always thought it was from just being the child of a divorced parent
I
who
had
became.
that too.
Did you? Yeah.
Mhm.
So did you think that, like, oh, these are all my issues because my parents are divorced and everything? Did you think that?
I did, and every therapist thought that too, because it
Oh,
was
Yeah.
my adoptive mom who left and So yes, it wasn't until
Okay.
we started the podcast and started reading.
Right. Okay. So I actually had, as a little side note, I will tell you, I've had the worst luck with finding therapists. I had a therapist actually tell me when I was going in, and I already knew that I wanted to start off with the adoption issues. She said, I was like, these are my issues. These are my issues with my mother, and this is blah, 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 blah. And then the first thing she said to me, she goes, well, my son adopted a baby and him and his wife. And then she goes, I thought you should know that. And it was kind of said in the tone like, how dare you, smear the name of my precious son who adopted a baby. And, like I kind of got that vibe from her. So I never went back to her. Anyway, so going on to, we live in Oceanside. My parents get divorced. I grow up and, went to high school and, all of the things, met my husband in Oceanside. And, my mom went through like a really dark, um, uh, you know, of course, she went through this really dark period. Her husband left. She didn't have any money, had to sell the house, and, for all of the things that I'm going to say going past this, I will say that I give her grace because I know that that really wasn't an easy situation for her. And, and at the time she was an older woman. And you have to remember, you know, she didn't even have a credit card.
Right, they
She
didn't.
didn't, like women back then, she was 50 years old when her husband left, so
Were
she
were
really,
you close to her?
no, not at all.
No.
We're like night and day. We're like completely, different people, always were. We don't look alike. We don't have the same sensibilities. We don't believe the same things. We're just not even the same sense of humor. And this is going to sound like the weirdest statement ever, but like even being around these people, I always felt like I don't even smell like them. Like,
Oh,
isn't that a
yeah.
weird thing to say? Like I just, this, everything was just, it's just not right. Like I felt like I was like a duck being raised by hippos or something. You know what I mean? Like I just never figured it out. So we weren't close. She, she started doing some, she was drinking, had got a boyfriend, and basically my brother and I joked around, we call ourselves, those were our feral years, like we were kind of feral children, but again, it was children of the 70s and the 80s, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get married. My husband's wonderful. And we're living life. I'm working at a bank. We went to college, all of the things. And I decided, you know what? Search. I'm going to search. I obviously don't belong in this clan. These are not my people. And it sounds mean to say that, but I said, I'm going to search. So at that time, in like the late 80s and the early 90s, there was no internet, obviously. The only thing that you can do as an adoptee at that time was to take your birth certificate, which had been literally, if I show you my birth certificate, it's whited out, like this whiteout. And you can like see where they actually did the whiteout and put I'm sure yours look the same. They put your adoptive
Yeah.
parent's name over that. So you take
Oh,
that
they made
birth.
a whole different
Oh, did
birth
they?
certificate. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah. Mine was
really?
different.
And that's your
Yeah.
original one?
The
No.
original one is entirely different. The legal one, I use quotes with that,
Yeah.
is with the adoptive parents' names. So two different birth certificates.
See, I have a birth certificate. I wish I had it on me right now. My birth certificate, my legal one with the raised stamp and everything from New York City, you can actually see where the putting out of the names is and the re-scripting of my mother and father's names is. Like you
I've
can
never
actually
heard of
see it.
that. I've never
Hmm.
heard of that actually.
Yeah. So it's almost like they were like, okay, here's this baby. What? Take out her name, put in
So
this,
weird.
and so the way that we as people in New York City, this doesn't work anymore for people who are listening from New York because this is a thing back in the day. You had to take your birth certificate because the number stays the same,
Mm-hmm.
like on the top. You had to take it to New York City, and in New York City Public Library, they had a big book. They had a
Mm-hmm.
big book. It was called the New York City Birth Index, and you had to cross-reference your number to find your mother's maiden name. But it was in alphabetical order. So if you didn't know your mother's maiden name, which is what you were looking for, you would have to like take a piece of paper and look down every single thing, like look for your birth certificate number, look for the date of birth. Oh, and you would have to do it. And you would see tons of people there, like searching for their, and the guy who ran it was like this like kind of grumpy genealogy department employee. And you know, like we would go there, my husband and I would take the train, and every Saturday, this was before I had kids, and we would walk into the public library, and he would look at us and he would be like, you know, like big sigh, like, oh God, here she is again, you know, like, and he would get out the books from my year, and the two of us would sit there, me and my husband, who deserves a medal, by the way, because you know,
Right?
he put up with
That's
this,
not
right?
normal. That's not
Right, right. He'd
normal.
be like, what are we doing Saturday? Oh, we're gonna sit in the library
Right.
and look at names. So we would look and we would look, and then I got as far as K in the book. Like I was like, oh my God, this is after months and weeks and stuff like that. And my husband was on the other book, and I said, I can't do this anymore. You know, it's like it's taking forever. So, you know, and then I was getting pregnant. You know, I was pregnant with my son, who was probably the same age as your son, that he's 28.
Hmm.
So it tells you how long ago back. There was
Awesome.
no internet, there was nothing. So I found somebody who, you know, and I know people frown on this, but she was a and I'm not going to blow her up here because she did me a solid. And I found it, and I'll tell you off air how I found her. She found it for me. She was a no, if she was a no pay, no, in other words, you don't pay her unless she finds it. So I gave her all my information. And at that time, I had also written for my background information to New York State, which they sent to me. I gave her all my information, blah, blah, blah. She found it in 4 days because she had better access. So I paid her. I paid her. It was a little bit of money, but at that time, I was desperate. I wanted to know. And I paid her, and she had it in 4 days. And she called me, and she said, I have your, you know, your birth mother's name. And she goes, oh, by the way, she goes, you have a sister. She said, so she goes, I think it's a half sister. You know, she goes, I don't know. I wasn't able to find anything on your birth father. You know, she goes, but here is the name of your birth mother, and here is the name of the birth sister. I said, okay. And I had my non-identifying, New York State will send you non-identifying information. And my non-identifying information, which is all wrong, by the way, all of it is wrong.
Yeah,
Said I
of
had red
course.
hair when I was born. I had reddish hair and blue eyes. And it said that my parents were 17 and 19. They were dating. They were going to get married. And then they decided, after talking with the parish priest and their parents, that they couldn't do it. So my father, my biological father, it says on the thing, is tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, was in college, and he played in a band. Right. So like immediately, like, what do you think when you hear you're in a band, right? What do you think?
Right.
Like I'm
Famous.
thinking, right, right. So I would go
Who
like for
is he?
years,
Who is he?
right? Right. So I would go for years, you know, doing like I learned this word from you guys, which was Ghost Kingdom,
Yeah.
right? And I'd be like, all right, who are the musicians with blonde hair and blue eyes that are out there that, you know, who were 19 in
Oh,
1969, you know?
David Soul.
I
Right.
know,
Well, I
right?
was right, right. That was it. David Soul. Don't give up on us. That guy.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even know. Like I was looking, I'm like, well, the guy from Aerosmith has blonde hair. I mean, this, you know, whatever. So, so, you know, isn't that weird that we do that?
Yeah.
So in my head, so again, there's no Google at this point. The internet is very new. Like this is 28 years ago, right? So I would do the search, and she lived, my biological mother and sister lived, I know you had said Comac. They lived in a town close to Comac, which is probably, you know, like 40 minutes away from here. So I would go on the internet every day, like the basic internet that it was, and I would Google her name. And I would Google her name, and I would Google my sister's name, and I would Google all of these things. And the one thing that I did find out about her is I would see her and her name listed with her new husband. She was remarried. She was remarried, and she had my sister 5 years after me. She was remarried. or married. I don't know if she was married the first time. She was married, and she had my sister 5 years after me, and her name would come up on all these running websites. Like, her name's Marion, like Marion and her husband Rick. Like, they'd be like, oh, Marion and Rick, blah blah blah, ran the 5K, blah blah blah, and this was their time. Like, they did a lot of like marathon running, the two of them,
There
which is
you go.
bizarre because I'm a marathon runner.
Really?
Yes. So I
Were
was
you
like,
a
oh, that
marathon runner at this time?
I was not I wasn't a marathon runner at the time, but I was a runner. I've
Hmm.
always been a runner. I ran
That was
since
your
I'm
thing.
19. Like, I always run. I run every day. I do that. It's just like a thing for me and my son
Hmm.
too. And I would see on these websites, I'd be like, oh, every day I would check and I'd be like, oh, look, they ran the 5K and they got, they would post the scores. I said, well, that's interesting. I said, you know what? I'm going to call her. I have her number. I'm going to call her. Right. I got up the courage and
Hmm.
I dial the phone rings, right to voicemail. And it's one of those like robotic voicemails, like, thank you for, leave your message, not even personal, nothing, like not even personal. So I said, okay. So for the longest time, I said, I'm going to try and call her. I would try and call that number. Nobody answered the phone ever. It was always a voicemail or just nothing. So I said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable leaving a voicemail for this woman. I go, what if her husband doesn't know? She was like, who is this leaving a message? What if her daughter doesn't know? Like, what if she never said anything? I said, I'm not going to blow up her, her life, just be like, hey. So I said, you know what? Let me try. Every day I would call from a payphone. I would call from a different number. I would call from work. I would call from the morning. I would call in the evening. I would call on a Saturday. Never, ever, ever answered the phone. So I'd be like, all right, that's a little weird, right? Nobody ever answered the phone. And they didn't even have a personal thing. So I said, I'm going to write a letter. Let me write a letter. So a couple of, years go by. I write a letter. Hi, what do we write in the letters all the time? Don't
Don't
want
want
to
to
bother
bother
you,
you.
Mm-hmm.
right? We all do the same thing. But now when I think about it, I want to like kick myself for being like that. Like it makes me cringy when I
Mm.
see how I did that. But wrote the letter. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to know, blah, blah, blah. You know what it is. Sent the letter. No answer. Year goes by. No answer. So what do I think in my head? I go, she probably didn't tell her family. Maybe she got pregnant with her high school boyfriend. She didn't tell anybody. And I understand that. I understand. Maybe she didn't tell anybody. So I'm not gonna bother her. She obviously doesn't want to be found. She doesn't want to be found. So some time goes by. And I said, you know what? The internet's getting better. The internet's getting better and better and better, right? It's coming. So let me find out about the sister. Let me look at the sister. So I find my sister, and lucky for me, my sister, my half sister, is this prolific blogger. Blog, 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 right? So she's got blogs on everything. She's got blogs on, she has horses. She's vegetarian. She likes all these type of horse races and competing and this that and the other thing, and she owns goats and she owns chickens and all of this. So I see her blogs every day and I'm like, oh, this is fascinating, like I'm reading it like I know her and I'm like, wow, this is great. I'm like picking up all this information. But she also had Facebook, and from her Facebook at that time, which was emerging, people weren't smart enough to put their Facebook on private at the time. Remember how it was like an open page? I found out from Facebook, 25 things about me. Remember that from
Yeah, I
Facebook?
remember that.
Remember
Came
that?
up as
Remember
a
that?
memory
Right?
recent.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So she was doing these, which, like stupidly, people are doing it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Anybody looking at that could see all your pets' names, and like it's like scammers could be getting all your whatever. So she was doing them, and I was reading them, and I was reading her Facebook page, and I'm like, this is interesting. And that's where I found out. And then I was reading in between the lines where she was like talking to people that she was friends with. Like her friend would say something like, oh, remember your wedding or something? And then she would write something like, ugh, you remember how mad my mom was, and you know how she is. And, I was like, oh God, maybe our mom's like mean. And she would write all this stuff. And I'd be like, oh, maybe something's off there. So she wrote on this 25 things about me that she had cancer when she was 17. a really, really, really rare form of cancer. It was a type of sarcoma that she found in a weird, strange way when she was 17. And she went to St. Jude's. She was cured. She had tons of radiation. She's been in remission now. So again, she had a blog about that. She had a blog about, and she had a Facebook, a group of all survivors of all of this type of cancer because it was so rare. So she was an admin of this group, and I was like reading the comments in the group, like really, I guess stalking, and reading all of these comments in this group, and I'm like, oh wow, she's a survivor of cancer. I go, that's good for me to know. And this cancer primarily affects people between like 18 and 30. So I'm like, I have kids in that age range, so I'd really like to know that information. So she's posting this and posting this and posting this. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to contact the sister because it kind of seems like, you know what? She doesn't really get along with her mother. It's pretty obvious she doesn't know I exist. I said, I'm just going to, at this point, I'm going to look for father. I'm going to look for my biological father because, these people kind of don't want to be bothered. I'm going to look it up. So I call the woman who did my initial search and I go, can you help me out with the father thing? And she goes, no, I couldn't find anything. She goes, couldn't find anything, whatever. And in my sister's 25 things about me, she had mentioned something about how she was given a free test to test on one of the new the DNA sites. She didn't say which one. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, I'm going to do that. I go, she did that. I go, let me do that. So I get on Ancestry. I'm like, it's got to be Ancestry. That's the big one, right? And it wasn't cheap back then. It was more expensive, and I didn't have a lot of money running around. So I get on Ancestry, no match. No match. She's not on it. I'm all right. No match to a father, no match to anything. So then I was able to find, I let it go. I said, you know what? I don't know what to do. What should I do? How am I going to find this father? And then I go, oh, I found an obituary for my biological mother's parents, right? I don't know how. Don't ask me. I'm Google crazy. And in the obituary, it listed my mother and her new husband and the names of all her siblings and their husbands. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the aunt. I'm going to find the aunt. I'm going to go find somebody else, right? So I find this aunt who's my mother's younger sister, and I find her on social media, and her husband's in a band, and the band's going to have a gig near my house. So I said, you know what? I'm going, right? So I go to the band, right? I drag my husband to the band, and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking, and she's not there. Because I know what she looks like from social media, and I'm looking and I'm looking. I'm like, oh, she's not here. She's not here. 2 months later, band's playing again. I drag my husband. It's on a Thursday night, and I go, we're going to this band. We're going to find my biological aunt, and I'm going to ask her. I'm going to say, her name's Lori. Who was my mother dating in high school? I go, who was she dating? Just give me a name. I can't find anybody. Let me know. So he goes, all right. So we go to the band, and at the same night that they're having this band play, they're having like a not RuPaul, but like a RuPaul-ish event, like with like beautiful drag queens and like they're having like this event going on at the same time. And I'm so focused, and I go in and I'm sitting at the bar, and I don't even notice any of this is going on around me. My husband's like, "You missing this?" He goes, "You're missing this," because I love that show. I love RuPaul's Drag Race. He goes, "You're missing this." He's like, look at all the, and he's like, I go, no, I gotta focus. I gotta find this woman. So she's there, my aunt. She's there, and she's talking to her friends. And I go, oh my gosh, she's over there. I go, she's over there. I'm gonna talk to her. So my husband goes, all right. I go outside. He goes over to her and he goes, are you? And she goes, yes. And he goes, my wife knows you. Will you go? She wants to talk to you. She's outside, which is probably a really bad idea. She probably thought I was going to kill her. She probably thought I was a serial killer. Like, can't go outside and talk to this strange woman. The Rex Heuermann, I was going to, pull that on her. So she comes outside and she looks at me and she's like standing like this. And I go, do you know who I go, do you know who I am? And she looks at me and she goes, you're Marion's daughter. Like that. And she goes, you look just like her. She goes, you look just like her. And I go, yeah. And she goes, I have to sit down. She goes, I have to sit down. So she goes and she sits on a bench and she puts her head down in between her legs. She goes, oh my God, oh my God. And I feel bad because I took her by surprise,
Mhm.
you know, and I go, listen. And she goes, you know, I was just saying to my other sister not that long ago, like, didn't Marion have a baby? Whatever happened with that? I go, okay. She goes, oh my God. So she goes, you know, I need a minute. I go, okay. I go, listen, I don't want anything. I go, I don't, we don't have to be friends. I go, I don't want to come to Christmas. We don't have to Facebook. I go, can you just tell me who my mother was dating in high school? I go, that's obviously my father, that, you know, I have the information, blah, blah, blah. And she says, and she looks at me with a straight face and she goes, oh, it's Rick. I go, excuse
I
me?
knew that's what you were going to
Me
say.
too. Oh my
And
God.
she goes, yeah, it's him. I go, are you kidding me? I go, I have been trying to contact her for years. I go, she doesn't answer me. I go, he knows? She goes, oh yeah. I go, so that's my full sister? She goes, uh-huh. And she goes, you know she had cancer, right? I go, yeah, yeah, yeah. I already know about that. I go, yeah. I go, does she know about me? No. I go, does Rick know about me? Oh yeah. Does my mother know about me? Oh yeah. I go, why won't they answer me? And she goes, oh, they're never going to answer you. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, they're a little strange. I go, what do you mean? She goes, you know, they're very to themselves. She goes, they don't really socialize. And your mother is like the walking embodiment of PTSD. She goes, she is like a walking stress ball. And I go, oh, that's terrible. I go, I feel terrible about that. She goes, yeah. She goes, I'm not even going to tell her that you came to see me. I go, you're not? She goes, no. She goes, it would kill her. I'm like, oh,
So
who
wait,
wants
am I
that?
getting this right that her
Oh.
husband is your father?
Yeah.
The guy in the band? Your aunt's husband?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no. Oh,
No.
Marion. Yeah, no, no, that's a different guy. That's a different
It's the
guy.
okay,
guy
Yeah.
she's
okay.
the
No,
guy
no,
she
no, no,
married
no, no,
after
no, no.
5 years. Yeah, the guy
So
she
yeah,
married.
no. So
Wait,
no, the guy that my biological mother has been married to, her running partner, the
Yeah.
one that was her high school boyfriend, has been my father the whole time. I thought it was he was I thought she was just not answering me because she never told her new husband. Turns out she's been married to my father since 1974.
Yeah, they got married after you, like five
Yeah,
years
and then they
after
had my
you.
sister.
Yeah.
And I go, why won't they answer me? And she goes, they're never going to talk to you. She goes, they're very, you know, and I go, oh, I go, okay. And then I just kind of like left it. I go, all right, what do I do with that? Right. I go, does my sister know about me? And she goes, no. I go, should I contact her? And she goes, I wouldn't. I go, okay. All right. I go, okay. So I leave. And I'm like, well, that sucked, you know? And she didn't, you know, like if somebody came up to me and was like, hey, I'm the child of your brother, I'd be like, oh my God, what's your name? What do you do? Give me your number. Let's, you know, nothing.
Nothing.
Like she didn't want, I mean, she was nice and I'm going to give her, you know, a pass because I took her by surprise. You know, I probably maybe shouldn't have done that, but I took her by surprise, but she's a big grown up, you know. She goes, "Oh, I was 12 when Marion was pregnant with you, and she was 17." And she goes, "You know, it almost killed my father. You know, he was so mad, and he was so mad, and they made her go to this in the city into, you know, the unwed mother's home, and you know, we used to go visit her because she was sick. You know, we were told she was sick, and she had to go to the hospital in Manhattan to get better, but really she was, you know, having a baby." She goes, and we don't talk about it. She goes, it's never talked about. She goes, she has so much stress. So I go, all right, what
You
do I
know,
do
her
with that?
stress, I'm sorry, but her stress is probably the PTSD is hello. I mean, having
Yeah.
you, giving you
Oh,
away.
absolutely. And I think that, you know, from what I've learned subsequently, Grandpa Nick, who was my grandpa, her father was kind of a rough guy. Like he wouldn't have made it easy for her. Like, and they were nice Catholic people, and she ruined the whole family name. Like that was the vibe I was getting. So I let it go. I go, you know what? Do I want to be responsible for calling this woman up and her daughter, my full sister, and being like, hey, here I am, and having her like do something awful to herself? Like, that was heavy. You know, I go, I don't really want that. So I let it go. I go, all right, whatever. Some time passes, and I'm on Ancestry. I get a ding. You have a first cousin match. Oh, that's interesting, right? So I go on, and I see first cousin match and it says GS. And I go, all right, I'm going to contact GS. So whatever. So, hi, I'm a cousin, who are you? And blah, blah, blah. And immediately I get an email back. Oh my God, your GS is my husband. I run his tree. You match his first cousins. How do you know him? And I wrote back. I said, you know what? Gloves are off. I'm just writing back. I'm adopted. Blah blah blah. I gave him all the information, and she writes back immediately. She goes, I know who you are. She goes, we know who you are. She goes, right after you left the bar. She goes, Lori, the aunt. Turns out it was my mother's brother's son that I was contacting. So my first cousin, the aunt, went right to the brother and was like, "You're never gonna guess who came to see me at the bar," and they knew. And she's like, "We know all about you." She goes, she goes, they told us the whole story, and she's like, "I feel bad." She's like, "I'm so sorry." She goes, I don't. She goes, I married your cousin, so I don't know the family that well. She goes, but your mother and father are really standoffish. She goes, and I don't know your sister that well, but she seems cool. She goes, whatever. And I go, oh, listen, it's fine. And she arranged to have a phone call for me to talk to my first cousin. She was lovely. It's always the people who are not adopted who are like more
Right.
help facilitating the thing. She was really, really nice. So I got on the phone. The first cousin called me. He was lovely. So I got on the phone with the first cousin. He called me a couple days later, and he was absolutely delightful. He was very kind. He's the oldest cousin out of the group of cousins in this family. He told me the whole story. He was like, listen, our grandfather, your mom's father, he goes, rough guy. He goes, super put on the facade of like, my family's perfect. And, we're this great, religious Catholic Italian family. And he goes, I can't imagine that he made it easy for your mother. He goes, it was probably really, really difficult and all of these things. And he goes, they're dead at this point. He was rough. He goes, he was rough on my father too. He was really rough on your mother and her sisters. And he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, if you need anything, any information, call me. He's like, I'll help you whenever I can. I go, all right, but by this point, I know a lot. I already know about the cancers. I know about the horses, the whole bit. So I go, all right, that's very nice. And I let it alone. And I go, let me ask you a question. I go, my sister, I go, she said she's on like one of those, DNA sites. I go, it's not Ancestry. I go, I'm going to get 23andMe and I'm going to see if we match there. He goes, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I go, what's going to happen if she looks on Ancestry, on 23andMe one day and goes, oh my God, I have a sister. He goes, well, if it happens, it happens. Right. So I got 23andMe and there she is. She matches me full sister. Right. So, um, a couple of weeks after that, after I see that I match her, I found out that my cousin GS did a little finagling behind the scenes and got a group cousin chat together, included my sister, said, hey, I got this first cousin match on blah, blah, blah. Does anybody know who it is? My sister got in the group chat, went on her 23andMe, saw me. And then a couple days later, I got a message. Hello, sister. I go, oh my
Wow.
God. Yeah, right. It's like, oh my God. So I type back and I go, oh, hi, it's nice to talk to you. I go, did you know? She goes, I had no idea. She goes, I had no idea. She goes, now, and we typed back and forth for a couple of weeks. Like she didn't want to talk on the phone, you know, she didn't want to talk on the phone. So we typed back and forth and she was like, I told her all of the things like, you know, I, I was adopted through Catholic Charities. And the first thing she said to me, she goes, there's three things that are very important. She goes, my health. Do you know about my health? And I go, yes. I go, I'm not going to tell her, I've been stalking you for years. I read your blogs. I know
Yeah.
all about your health. I know I'm in your sarcoma, help group too. I go, I'm not going to tell her that. And I go, yeah. Yeah. She goes, it's really serious for you and your children. You need to know about this cancer. I go, it's good. I'm glad I know. And I'm really glad I know because when the doctor asked me when I go for my checkup, did anybody in your house have cancer? Yes, my full-blooded sister has this really rare, whatever. And she goes, the second thing is nobody knows about you. She goes, our family is so secretive. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. She goes, it's not that you weren't wanted. And she goes, the third thing is that you can never tell my mother. And she goes, well, our mother. And I go, all right. She goes, she likened her to, she goes, have you ever seen the show Homeland? I go,
Oh,
yeah. And she goes, you know the character Carrie, when she, played by Claire Danes, you know when she's in the Russian jail, I think it is, and she gets
Mhm.
out, she has that severe PTSD, and they get her out. She goes, that's my mother. She
Mm.
goes, we are in, she called it protect mom mode. She goes, now I realize that her stress didn't start with me having cancer and going through the treatment. She goes, it started way back in the day with you. She goes, and I realized, she goes, now that I'm looking at it, she goes, I really understand why, you know, she was the kind of mom she was, because she was so stressed about you and all of these things. And I go, oh yeah, you know, I understand. She goes, are you okay that it's not a good idea to talk to them? And I go, well, I guess, you know, they don't really seem like they want to talk to me either. And I go, I almost contacted your father. And then she wrote back, your father. You know, she was your father. I go, yeah, you're right. She goes, probably not a good idea. I go, all right. So we talked on the chat. You know, we talked on the chat for a while. We arranged to meet, right? So she goes, we're going to meet at this park, you know, halfway between our house. She's about 40 minutes away from me. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to tell you is because of her rare cancer that she had as a child, she can't have children. So
Oh.
she adopted a little boy from Korea. So, you know, she goes, isn't it ironic? She goes, I'm an adoptive mom. And she goes, you know, she goes, now I know why during my whole adoption process, my mother didn't get involved. She goes, it probably stressed her out. I go, yeah, probably. I go, probably. So we arranged to meet. We arranged to meet at this park, and she's going to bring the aunt with her, the aunt from the bar.
In the bar.
She's going to bring the aunt. She goes, I'm bringing her with her, you know, because she already met you. So I go there, and I go to the park. I'm sitting there, and they don't show up.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I'm like, what the hell? So I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there. I go home. Stupidly, we didn't take each other's phone numbers because we had been, you know, chatting on the chat with the thing. She writes me, I get home. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I had a flat tire. I couldn't make it. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. I go, we'll meet another time. She goes, you know, but the universe works in mysterious ways. She goes, you know, maybe it wasn't time for us to meet. Okay, whatever. So after that, her, we had been chatting like almost every day, like, you know, finding out about each other. What did you do this and that? You know, we had a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences, you know, and she explained how her parents were very strict and this and that. After that, where she didn't show up, the chatting, that was July. So we were supposed to meet in August. After August, the chats kind of stopped. Like she was not
What year
really
was
answering.
this? What year was this?
2018.
18.
Mm.
Okay.
2018. So the chats kind of just stopped. You know, she didn't really, you know, she was responding with like one word
Mm.
replies, like, how you doing? I'm fine, you know, how's everything? Oh, busy, you know, like, oh, that's weird. So I see on Facebook some points. I said, all right, let me leave her alone. That's I go, I know this is overwhelming. I go, I've known for 20 years. You're just finding out. And she was going through, she had just gone through her divorce. Her and her husband were divorcing. So, you know, I just let it alone. I go, I'm not gonna bother her again. I'm not gonna bother her. What am I gonna beg somebody to answer me? And I see on Facebook, she writes a post that says, I was getting out of my car yesterday and I felt a pain on my side. So I took myself to the hospital nearby and they did a thing. My cancer's back,
Oh,
right?
Mm.
So her cancer comes back. So immediately I write to her and I go, oh my God, you know, I'm so sorry. What is it? And she writes back and she writes, stage 4, yay.
oh
Right.
man.
So
Come
I'm like, oh
on.
my God. I go, is there anything I can do? She goes, no, no, I'm starting treatment, you know, whatever. I'll keep you posted. I go, okay. So at this point, I had been kind of, you know, I had I was also friends on Facebook through the cousin GS. I was Facebook friends with him and his sister and his wife. So you know, I could see what was going on. She she took my sister took away all her social media. She went down, like she went dark. So she took down all her social media in September. So I wrote to the cousin and I go, what's going on? She goes, she goes, oh, she took down all her social media. It's not good. Oh, okay. I go, can you keep me posted? She goes, yeah. So somebody who was a friend of my sister's on Facebook, for whatever reason, I must have gotten tagged, started a GoFundMe for her, her friend. So I went on the GoFundMe and the GoFundMe was like, you know, my sister, she's sick. She needs help. She's in the hospital. Let's help her get past this, blah, 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 blah. I go, okay, so I'm reading it. So I'm getting updates from the cousins and the GoFundMe, because my sister is completely out of social media. She took her Facebook down, everything. So there was a Saturday in November. I took my daughter to see the Queen movie, the Freddie Mercury
Mhm.
Queen movie. We took my daughter and we're sitting in the movie theater and I was just sitting there and I felt like this weird, like sensation, like come like over me. I was like, this is very weird. Like, oh, something like, out of body. And I just got like a weird shiver. And I went home and the cousin texted me and they said she passed away.
Mm.
Yeah. So I said,
Gosh,
oh
you
my
never
God,
met her. I
never
can't.
met her, never met her. But we talked, like we talked on the thing,
Mhm.
whatever. So I said to the cousin, I go, well, is there a burial site? I can leave flowers? No. Her parents had a very small, closed funeral. Didn't invite anybody. The only people there were the ex-husband and the son and the aunt from the bar. And, they're like, we don't even know where she's buried. We don't know anything. Like they didn't involve us. So I said, oh, that's terrible. I didn't get to meet her. I feel really bad. I go, like, well, at least you got to talk to her. So then I just like let it go. I go, what am I supposed to do? You know? So, you know, fast forward a couple years, that's 2018, right? So I just said, okay. Now at this point, I think if I knocked on my parents' door, they'd probably drop dead if they saw me. They'd probably be like, oh my God, it's like the ghost of,
Yes.
sister, And my sister had explained to me that the way that our mother thinks is that she was being punished for giving me away by giving my sister cancer. Like that's how she thought in her mind. Like she said she did a bad thing by like having a baby out of wedlock, and here's your punishment. We're going to give you your daughter, and she's going to die from cancer. She goes, so that's how my mother thinks. So if she saw me, I think she might drop dead on the floor, right? So, what am I going to do? Should I call them? No, right? Would you? Right? I feel terrible.
Right.
So, a couple months after that, first year of COVID, 2020, I get another ancestry message. Hi, my name is Brianna. We match as second cousins. Love to know how we match. I go, all right. I email her back and I go, I'm going to be honest. I said, Brianna, I'm adopted and my parents are blah, 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 blah. And I don't know how you fit in with that. And she writes back to me and she goes, oh my God. She goes, I just asked my mother. And she goes, my mother, her name is Diane, is your mother's first cousin. They grew up together. Diane was lovely. She immediately got on to she sent me like a novel. She was like, I am so sorry, we didn't know about you. That family was, she goes, quite honestly, they always thought they were better than us. She goes, I'm shocked that you were, born and I feel bad that they treated you like this and they don't want to talk to you. And she goes, I'll meet with you. I'll meet with you. I go, that's nice. I met with her, another cousin, and they filled me in on everything from when they were kids, how they grew up together, all of this, which was nice. Um, I, this cousin Diane, she's very nice. She's the same age as my mother. They're in their 70s at this point. We're very, very opposite on a lot of things. Like we're very opposite on politics, religion, everything. Like she's one way and I am a complete different way. But she's been like lovely. Like she's really,
She's
reached
giving
out.
you
Like
a
I
link.
have to.
She's giving you that link to your past,
Yeah,
like to
yeah, she is,
everybody.
and they've been very nice. And I don't know if it's they wanted to meet me because they were curious because they really didn't have a good relationship with my mother. They were like, oh, your mother was snotty, like, and I was like, all right. And they said, if they were just curious to see me, and they were probably like, ha, look, they thought they were so much better, and look what happened, or if they just genuinely wanted to meet me. So I met with them a couple of times, and I
So,
had yeah, yeah. She I had to block her because she's a little eccentric on Facebook. Like she's a little much with some of her posts. I had to like tone her down a little
Yeah.
bit. But that's where it stands. So I got all the
Oh,
information
still. That's it.
and I still, my parents are 40 minutes away
And they're
and they're
still
in
alive. both of them.
Oh
Any
yeah.
any chance that you will just say, "The hell with it, I'm gonna go."
I don't know.
I did
I
it.
feel
I
like
I'm not kidding.
encourage Louise did it.
I did it.
I
I
encourage you to
feel
do
like from
that.
what everybody's telling me is that if I did that, it would kill her.
I
I
Like
know, but people say the
you
same.
know, like I don't know. I feel
they
like
don't know though. They don't know. It could be exactly what she needs to
that's what I said. I go,
I
maybe this would lift this burden on
yes.
her, you know?
Mhm.
So that's where it stands. So they're an hour, 40 minutes away, and
I'd
Hey,
say that's another Saturday adventure for
I
you and
do
your
too.
husband
Me too. I like that. Me
from the
too.
I know where they
library.
live. Oh, I
I've,
know where they live. They literally, I've passed their house. I went by.
of
I
course
know
you
where
did.
they live. Of course I did. I'm nuts.
Listen,
And
Elle, I went and met my biological father. Everyone said not to. He said not to, but it was worth it. Even if it's 10
yeah,
minutes, it relieved him too. I could feel it. I don't know. I mean,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
telling you to do something dangerous, but
I know. I think about it. Everybody's like, "Oh, go talk to them, go talk to them." And I think about it
they're
and
both your parents and they've
I
had
know.
so
They're
much loss.
right.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. So like, but I don't want to like make them, you know, feel terrible. You know what I mean? Like
You can
so
have someone else go to the door. That's what I did and see if they'd
right.
like to meet. And
hmm
then,
And I
Yeah,
can I know.
we can
Yeah.
Louise
yeah.
can give you all this info off when we're
I'm
off,
gonna make
but
Louise do it.
I definitely, well, this has been you're such a great storyteller. I was
Oh, thank you.
captivated the
Fascinated.
entire
Me
time.
Oh,
too.
thank you. And before we leave, I just want to tell you one little small thing. The town that I live in, now right where I live, where in Oceanside, where both of my biological parents grew up, and grandparents, they are less than a quarter mile from where I live right now. So my grandparents on both sides, I have passed their house for 20 years, never knowing
That's a
Mm,
that
crazy
literally they were a
thing.
quarter mile away from me the whole time. So
yeah,
that's
that's
where it is. But they're all deceased
the
now.
weird synchronicities that,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. In the same,
Well,
we all ended up in the same town. So that's
interesting.
where it is. Yeah,
Well, please keep in touch with us
I
and we
will.
encourage you to do what you have to do. It's
I
your
know.
life, I mean, it,
If
you
I
have
was
the
giving
right.
advice to somebody, I would say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It's
And you
So,
know,
scary.
and we're here for you if you want
I
some people to bounce it off of. So
I will. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So I'll let you know if I do. You know, as far as I know, they're in perfect health running marathons.
do it.
Yeah.
Do it, Elle. Do it.
I
Loved
will,
meeting
maybe.
you. I just
It
Yeah.
was
loved
nice
meeting
to
you.
meet you too. Sorry, I went very fast.
That's
No, it's
okay. It was
great.
great.
Oh,
Thank,
thanks. I know.
yeah.
Thank you. It's
All
really
right.
nice to meet you. And thank you for the podcast. We really appreciate it. And Dave, hit me up. We'll talk.
Yeah. We'll talk
Make
to
sure to
him.
tell him.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank,
yeah. All right. Be
thanks,
Thanks,
Elle.
well.
Elle.
Take
Okay,
care.
bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
She's a great storyteller, huh?
God, just love her. And what twists and turns. I
I
mean, going to
know.
the bar and seeing
And
the
also
aunt.
just the early days of Facebook. I remember because I had a 25 random things memory that popped up on my,
So crazy.
and I was like, wow, I really put myself out there back then. I would
Oh my
not
God,
do that now.
everybody put stuff out there. It was the craziest time.
I
Like just
know.
no idea what social media was going to become, right?
Right.
But
Um,
she is a typical adoptee detective stalker. She's like, oh, I'm like, that is so typical. That's just what we
and
do.
her full parents, I'm like,
I
I think they
know.
probably maybe that would shock them, but also maybe they'd want, I mean, it's up to her. It's not the hearsay from others,
Yes, never
shouldn't
does well.
dictate it
Right.
what, nobody knows what they'd be like or how they'd react. They just don't know. This is guesswork. So,
Maybe they
I,
keep to themselves because of what they've been through. We
yeah,
just don't know. You know, her mom clearly is affected. I mean,
yeah, I know.
like the whole thing. Her poor sister dying. That
Oh
just
my
bummed me out. And
gosh,
they
I
couldn't.
know. Oh,
What a
really,
story.
really. Well, Louise, what do we say?
Another great episode.
Another great episode. See you next time.
See you next time.